Welcome to Module 4, Part 3. In this section, we're going to talk about multimedia story examples and just discuss a little bit about multimedia journalism. So this is an example of a multimedia story. As you probably know, there have been a rise in the number of mass shootings happening across the United States. And so right here, Mother Jones did a multimedia story where they were addressing this. You're going to see a little bit right here. This was just the page of that, the front page of that story. So it starts off with a graph, and you can see it breaks down the number of people who were injured versus fatalities, and it shows sort of an increase in the past decade of those shootings. There's also a link to some stories where beyond the map there are text stories included. So this is an example of a recent multimedia story and a good topic to do a multimedia story on, because you can use audio, you can use video and text and graphs to tell a story. So most good multimedia stories require some in-person reporting, because you're going to want to use audio and video in addition to text. So it's not necessarily the type of reporting that you can just do from home or from behind the desk, or you're picking up the phone and getting quotes. You actually, for a good multimedia story, you actually want to be out in the field. So when you're embarking on a multimedia story, you want to think about your narrative, and you also want to take care of any pre-production planning, as in scoping the location, trying to figure out who you're going to speak to. You also want to narrow in on your story's focus and decide which tools you want to use to tell that story. So it could be, in terms of tools, you could be using a video camera, just a regular point and shoot camera to capture JPEG images. You could be using a voice recorder to record audio files, or all of the above. You could be taking your tablet and laptop out into the field. So those are just some things that you want to consider when you are doing multimedia storytelling. The main thing is to really consider the tools that you want to use and how they are going to help you build a strong narrative. It's another example of a multimedia story right there. And this one comes from actually the New York Times, and you guys feel free to look all of these up. It's called China's Great Uprooting, and it talks about migration patterns in China where you have people moving into the cities. And I just kind of want to say that New York Times does a really good job in terms of putting together some video production and their narration. And I mean, it's very top-notch, as you would expect it to be, coming from the paper of record, but it's just one place you might want to look towards to find some good recent multimedia stories. This right here is also another interesting multimedia story that's rather recent, and you can also look this up. It is talking about the development of Detroit. A lot has been covered. There have been a lot of stories recently about Detroit, because it's a city that's been in decline, and it has been for some time, and it's also made a lot of press because of like corruption and issues with municipal bankruptcy, that sort of thing. But this is a really interesting story because it's done in images, and you can see what it looked like at one time versus what it looks like now. And there's some really interesting things you can do just hovering with your mouse with the images. So I suggest that you take a look at this story right here on Detroit.